A few weeks ago, I attended the inaugural meeting of the Howard County Interfaith Council, on which I was invited to serve. County Executive Calvin Ball delivered a short speech before he signed the executive order and handed the group of 16 faith leaders over to his executive liaison. Nice as the kickoff was, I found myself momentarily distracted by the whiteboards near the podium that stated our purpose and objectives. The heading atop the center board read, in big, bold letters, INERFAITH, with the missing T making it Interfaith Council. Now, as someone whose other vocation is in strategic communications and writing, I couldn't help but notice the error and chuckle a little bit to myself. Not at the mistake, but at the unintended misspelling's double entendre. For indeed, the group of Christian, Jewish, Hindu, and Muslim clerics present had gathered not for the ceremony or the photo opportunity, but because of their strong inner faith. I spent a little time mulling over the connection between the two terms, interfaith and inner faith, and I concluded they are inextricably linked in ways we often fail to consider, across thousands of years and around the world, from the roots of Islam to the history of Judaism to the evolution of Christianity. We see it in the overlaps in certain feast days and traditions, as well as oral histories that shape the Bible, the Torah, and the Quran. For example, in Islam, our beloved Mary is called Miriam, one of the most revered women of their faith's history. Miriam, too, bears a son named Jesus, whom Muslims consider a great prophet. And of course, Jesus' dual identity as rabbi and as Christ the Messiah connects Jews and Christians across the ages. At Christ Church, I have watched the seeds of interfaith connection blossom in extraordinary ways over the past 2.5 years. From an initial conversation around potentially sponsoring a refugee family from Afghanistan to a thriving ecumenical multi-congregational ministry, it is tremendous inner faith that drives these rich and diverse interactions. Take the story of our refugee family, for example, an Afghan woman who worked in support of the U.S. government, and 3 of her 4 sons who fled to America to escape the Taliban. Nearly 2.5 years after Christ Church assumed care for this family, the husband and 4th son, who were tragically left behind, recently had their applications for humanitarian parole approved. With the State Department denying 90% of these applications, I consider this nothing short of a miracle. Now the family is one step closer to being together again after a long, painful separation and several years of living in fear. Though it could be weeks longer, once they complete their final screening at the U.S. Embassy in Pakistan, they can board a plane to America for a reunion we will all celebrate with great joy. The commitment we made together as a parish a few years ago to help this family transition to independence in their lives here is coming full circle. By the end of 2024, they will assume full responsibility for all their financial obligations. But our ministry doesn't stop there, and in fact, it has already expanded through connections across faith communities, cultures, beliefs, and traditions. I believe the Spirit is working through these associations to transform us in ways hard to fathom and harder still to explain. For instance, some of our members have been assisting 3 members of a second refugee family who arrived in the U.S. last May. The father, formerly a high-ranking official in the Afghan government, had worked closely with NATO and the U.S. military for 6 years until the U.S. withdrew from Afghanistan. This man now lives in Howard County along with 2 of his 7 children, while his wife and other children remain in Japan, seeking authorization to come to the U.S. With no work authorization and limited aid, the father and 2 teenage children here in the U.S. are barely scraping by. A few generous Howard County citizens have paid the bulk of the rent for their small apartment in Elk Ridge, and Christ Church parishioners, along with other friends, have also helped pay for rent, utilities, and food, as well as donated clothes and other essentials. Members of our refugee ministry also helped enroll the son in high school and make connections at Howard Community College. In March, the father of this family will share his story at a Shabbat service for refugees hosted by one of our ministry partners, Columbia Jewish Congregation. And it doesn't stop there. The breath of the Spirit continues to carry these seeds farther still. Recently, a member of Wesley Freedom United Methodist Church in Eldersburg reached out to our refugee ministry for help and advice for their new sponsorship of a 4-member Afghan family in the United States since late 2021. This young father, mother, and 2 toddler boys just moved to Elkridge, having lived in multiple less than ideal locations over the past few years. Recently, some Christ Church members went to meet the family, and our parishioners immediately jumped in to assist with getting an assessment of the 3-year-old by Howard County Public School System early childhood specialists to see what services might benefit him. They also connected them with the son from our sponsored refugee family who works for Lutheran Social Services to possibly provide helpful resources, offer translation assistance, and expand their Afghan community connections, including at a local mosque. Think about it. From a small group of Christ Church discerners to abounding blessings across 3 families and 5 faith communities and beyond. Oh, how the Spirit works when we are willing to open our vulnerable inner selves to serve the outward needs of this broken world. As we continue to be mutually blessed by these connections, we can trust God will continue to multiply them to build up the kingdom, guiding us to a healed, whole, and reconciled world where all God's children walk together in love. Because whether the heart of our faith cries out to Jesus or Adonai or Allah, God is good.